Hello, everybody. Welcome to another wonderful episode of Wali Wonders. We're here at Sophis Productions and we're here with Anila Shehzad, who's a geopolitical analyst and a writer. She has written many books. Recently, she has a new book coming out. And let's have a brief little introduction from Anila Shehzad before we talk about the New World Order, how Trump and his tariffs and his wars are affecting the world. So, how are you, Neela?
Fine, thank you. Pleasure to be here with you. And like I've told you before, I am an author. My new book has recently come out. It's Geopolitics, Frameworks and Dynamics in a Multipolar World. It's a very interesting book, and I would recommend that people should go and find it on the internet and in bookstores also.
That's great. We'll have a link to the book down below this podcast, so everyone who's interested can read the book. And so let's start the podcast. And recently we hear a lot of news, especially with Trump and Gaza, and we hear about the tariffs that are being implemented. And we hear that Trump is trying to cut a deal with Iran. He's trying to stop the war with Russia. And there's something going on between China and America as well. So to discuss all these diverse topics, we're here today. And where should we start? Let's start with Gaza.
Yeah.
Gaza is the most important one. So recently, Donald Trump said that he's going to take over Gaza. And he's going to rebuild and make a nice Riviera. And the people of Gaza should leave and go to Egypt or Jordan. And there's big condemnation for these words from all the Arab leaders, including the Egyptian, the Jordanian, and the Saudi leaders. The Saudi foreign minister came in an interview and said that all these plans were ridiculous. And this is basically ethnic cleansing that Donald Trump is doing. So it's been 1 year and 3 months of this war, and the official casualty number is around 50,000, but we're expecting 3 to 4 times more the number, and there are also a lot of people missing in Gaza. So taking in consideration all these devastating facts, what do you think that the future of Gaza is?
Well, before that, I would like to really comment on what happened between Netanyahu and Trump, because last week Netanyahu was in the US and he met Trump several times, and then they gave this joint statement and press conference in which Trump bluntly said to the world audience, in fact, that what the US is going to do is just take over Gaza. I mean, just imagine that it was a city of Pakistan, maybe of Balochistan, maybe Gwadar, and one fine morning another country's president, because he thinks he's so powerful, he would come and say that we are just going to take over Gwadar and all the people from Gwadar should just leave, and we're going to do a job. These are the words they use, that we are going to do a job over there. What job are you going to do over there with all those people who have been bombed and whose homes have been demolished in the last 15 months, and literally like depriving the people of Gaza of food, of water, and of roofs on their heads? I mean, after doing all that, and when the whole of Gaza has been razed to the ground, how vain is Trump, how arrogant is Trump of saying that these people are living in hell. What kind of hell is he talking about? They were living in Gaza, and you guys, Israel and you both, joined hands and made it a hell for them. You bombed them day and night. I mean, every day there was news that US planes filled with weapons, filled with ammunition, filled with fire power was landing in Israel, and they were supplying them with missiles, they were supplying them with all this, and Israel was relentlessly like bombing and killing the people of Gaza day and night. And now when this job has been done, now they want to do their next job, Like they want to make, Trump wants to make a Las Vegas in the Middle East, and the arrogance of this person, this man, is evident when he says that the people of Gaza or the Palestinians are not going to be having any right of return into Palestine or into Gaza after we've done that job of making Gaza a pristine, tourist hub, Las Vegas, a Riviera. So this is extreme things that Trump is doing, and some commentators, analysts, they are saying that Trump is just playing a game because he was fed up of Netanyahu, and he wasn't being able to make Netanyahu stop this war. And he played this trick with him, because Netanyahu, once he heard that the US is going to take over Gaza, he came back and he actually started working on the ceasefire plan. And the news today is that Israeli forces have left the Netzarim corridor, and they have emptied that part of Gaza, and that means that they are now coming back to the ceasefire. So what is really happening? The way Trump has dealt with this, many commentators are saying now that this war was not between Israel and Gaza, rather it was between US and Palestine, the way Trump has taken over the whole thing. So it's really amazing, it's really uncertain, and it is Trump seems to be driving the whole situation into further chaos instead of trying to wrap up the thing.
When Trump told Netanyahu that he's going to be taking over Gaza, even Netanyahu was surprised by that fact. And we could say that two people were fighting, the Palestinian people and the Israeli people, for the last 70 years on this strip of land that is Gaza. And a third party has come in, and they're claiming that they're going to take over and rebuild Gaza. We also have to understand that Netanyahu could not win the war, but he did carpet bomb the whole of Gaza. And there's the statistic that 8 to 10% of those bombs are still unexploded, and people cannot really go in and live their life, because back in 2014 and 15, when Israel attacked Gaza, and there was all these bombs in these houses, and there was this bomb in someone's drawing room which fell through the roof and came to his drawing room. And to get that bomb out, it took them a couple of months and a lot of people. And there's special people who can only, all around the world, there are a few teams that could really take up such a challenge of dismantling such vast amounts of bombs. And then they have tunnels all under Gaza, and the ground is not appropriate. But still the point is that Gazans have also rebuilt Gaza many times before, and they can, and even the Muslim nations can help Gaza. It's not just that Americans can help, but Muslim nations can rebuild.
Yes,
and the most important fact that people are saying that Trump is interested in Gaza because of the natural gas reserves that were recently discovered on their land. And if Trump takes over Gaza, he gets the natural or gas reserves, then he can really upset the power balance in the Middle East, because he could deliver cheap gas to whoever he wants in the Middle East, and there would be a disruption from Iran and all the people. So what do you think about all these things?
In fact, when the Gaza-Israel war was going on, all the Arab states, and all their foreign ministers would gather together, and they would talk about rebuilding Gaza and putting money into it, and they would talk about the final solution, and they were adamant in each of their statements, even bin Suleiman and all the foreign ministers, they repeatedly said that we are not going to compromise with anything less than the two-state solution. And it's really beyond comprehension that what went between all these states. And the whole thing started when Syria was toppled. Like Bashar al-Assad's regime was toppled, he had to leave the country, and from there this whole thing topsy-turvied and turned on its head. And from that day, Israel was able to bomb all the military, all the navy, all the air bases present in Syria. He was able to bomb all their government institution buildings. And there was this idea that they have bombed all these government buildings so that all those non-Syrian militants that are present inside Syria would be able to make their new identities and then show themselves as Syrians, because even al-Jolani, who has changed his name to al-Shara, is said to be a non-Syrian. And what is going to happen, that all these non-Syrian militants are going to become Syrians now, because there is no data, no census records left in the Syrian offices, and Syria is now going to be permanently ruled by this group of militants, terrorists. They were terrorists. They were members of Daesh. They were members of ISIS. They were members of Al Qaeda before this whole change. And these militants are going to be now the new rulers of Syria. And what about this whole Sunni majority of Syria, for whose rights the Arab world was always speaking of? And now we don't see any real Syrian people in any power position at all in Syria. The real Syrians are still left in their rebel cities. They're still refugees in other countries, and they're still waiting to return. And after Syria, Lebanon has also been compromised, because Hezbollah has become totally quiet. Hezbollah has put down their arms, and the new, after this new Christian president being elected, who is said to be a pro-US person, and after he came, al-Shara is coming to Lebanon to talk, the Saudis are talking with al-Shara, the Lebanese are talking with al-Shara, and now it seems to be Syria has been compromised, Lebanon has been compromised, and in this whole situation, Netanyahu is thinking that he is the real winner. So that is what's happened, that if there was an understanding, something like once Bashar al-Assad leaves, and once there is a Lebanon-Israel ceasefire, the next step is going to be a real, proper Gaza-Israel ceasefire. But now when Netanyahu looks back, he thinks that no, I have actually won the war. I have compromised Syria, I have compromised Libya, so why should I stop here? And that is what makes him think that he can actually have a complete control of the Gaza Strip. The five-finger plan that I was talking to you about means that the Israeli forces were going to completely and permanently be stationed inside Gaza, and they would make new settlements, and they would really crush the leftover Gazans, and they would make their life miserable permanently. But this whole thing has changed because of Trump's this new trick, or this new stunt that Trump has launched, that he is going to now come and build Gaza and own Gaza. And I don't know how the US can afford to do all that. I mean,
they're not building LA LA was burned down. Fires have devastated that area and community. And he's not talking about building LA back again, but he wants to build Gaza when America is in a bit of a financial stress themselves these days. And he's talking about the Gazans going over to Egypt and Jordan. Egypt and Jordan, both of them are not agreed upon, have not agreed upon taking the Gazans in and giving them a settlement. If Gaza is truly unlivable, the best place would be Israel, because right next to Gaza is all of the Israeli land. So why not Gazans have their temporary residence in Israel? That's much better. But the point is that it seems like an ethnic cleansing of the people, and there's no way that the people of Gaza will leave. And there was no way that Israel was winning the war. Even when all the buildings were toppled and there was nothing, the Gazans used to come out of the rubbles and shoot the Israeli people, their tanks, their people, and their bulldozers. A large number of Israeli soldiers have also died, and they're also in a war fatigue. All the people are against Netanyahu, and they have been protesting far before the war had begun. And there were hundreds of thousands of people on the street. And Netanyahu might have taken this opportunity to distract the world from the political crisis that was brewing in Israel. And now that the war has come to a ceasefire, if American troops come in, will the Gazan people just leave the land that they have been fighting for over 70 years?
Like the first time this thing came out, Trump did say that maybe the US troops are going to come and complete that job. But the very second day, Trump changed that thing, and he said that US troops don't have to come over there. Israel is going to complete the thing, end the thing, and then hand Gaza over to us, and then we will come. So that is like a game being played, and every day there's a new thing. Yesterday, Trump said that the Palestinians are not going to have a right of return. Like once we make Gaza into this new Riviera and all that thing, or get all that gas you're talking about, after that, there is no chance for the people of Gaza to come back. So there is no question of letting the people of Gaza come to the Israeli lands, the Negev desert maybe. No, because the plan is to expel all the Palestinians. Right after the ceasefire started in Gaza, the Israeli armed army started bombing the West Bank. And Trump has also said this thing, that not only from Gaza, West Bank should also be cleared. There needs to be no Palestinian in this whole land. And what is going to happen? What is the possibility that under the table maybe the King of Jordan or Sisi of Egypt would have agreed that they would take some of the Gazans or the West Bank, people from West Bank? That is not a possibility, because you remember the history of these Palestinians when they were in Jordan in the 1970s, 60s and 70s. And they became so strong in Jordan that they literally were ruling Jordan. They were literally having all the writ in Jordan, and the Jordan king was really afraid at that time that any day his government would be toppled, and these Palestinians who are like freedom fighters, who are so active, so energetic, and they are so full of this passion for this freedom and this war against Israel, that they are going to take over the whole political spectrum of Jordan. And what happened? The king of Jordan made war with these Palestinians in 1970 and 71, and he called friends from all over the world, to fight against them. And then these Palestinians, the PLO, Yasser Arafat and all his team, they were expelled from Jordan and moved into Lebanon. What happened in Lebanon? You know that story also.
Yeah,
that in Lebanon,
they were also expelled from Lebanon.
Yes.
PLO was the Gazans were not expelled. Rather, PLO was expelled from the area, and Yasser Arafat.
Palestinians. Yeah.
Yes, but it was mainly PLO. They made them go in a ship to Jordan, and all the PLO, Yasser Arafat.
Ship doesn't go into Jordan.
There was some visuals that I saw that the PLO leadership went into exile into Jordan, and that's when all these PLO people. First, Yasser Arafat was the number one terrorist of the whole world, and then he became the most peaceful person who could have had a deal between Israel and Palestine for a two-state solution, and till the end looked like a really nice deal, but Netanyahu was really the person who disrupted everything. Netanyahu was against this deal. Netanyahu is an obsessive person. He wants only blood and destruction in this area, and he wants a greater Israel. And it seems like he's making his ambitions come true in some ways, but in a lot of other ways, he might have failed on his ambitions. And a lot of people are against Netanyahu, even his own people right now. So that might not be the case, and their army has been badly damaged. So has, I guess, Iran is also damaged. Hezbollah is also damaged. This war has been devastating on both sides, especially for the Gazans. We don't clearly see the greater Israel being formed, or nor do we see the Palestinians defeated, nor is the Israeli army right now defeated, but they're all in a stage that they want to stop the war, except Netanyahu.
Yeah.
Even Donald Trump is up with ending the war, and it might be the case that Donald Trump said that the US army would take over Gaza because he wanted Netanyahu to do a ceasefire. And to Donald Trump's credit, he did make the war stop, and there is a ceasefire going on. So that's a positive thing, and only future can really tell us what's going to happen. But Trump was elected on the precipice that he was non-interventionist. He was going to stop the wars. And MAGA, the MAGA movement that Trump started, is a movement based upon that Americans want themselves to be free. They want better economic conditions. They want a better, safer America, rather than going on and invading all these other countries, especially with the news of the US aid also. So Trump's mega movement was started because of non-interventionist policies. America has been invading all of these countries while America itself is not in such a good state. They need to take care of their own economy. They're spending a lot of money on other people, which might not be how they're really spending, but with the recent discoveries of the US aid, they're spending millions and millions of dollars giving to all these countries that they actually could be spending that money in their own country. So something like they're giving $50 million for LGBTs in Thailand, and they're giving how much money to Jordan, to Egypt. A lot of money also from USAID comes to Pakistan as well. So this actually is a deep hole in the American government as well. Since Elon Musk is heading the Department of Doge, which is Department of Government Efficiency, and they're trying to audit Pentagon, they're trying to audit the Federal Reserve Bank, and they're trying to audit the US government spending. So they've found that there's a black hole when it's with the government spending, and all these things that Pakistan might one day get like $5-10 million for some ridiculous thing when everyone's hungry, but that aid does not go to the people. That aid goes to someone who is influential and someone who would do a favor in return. So most of these aid programs, what I think, are not what they say. Although America is a very philanthropic nation, and Americans don't want to, the community, American people don't want to see other people suffer, and they will help other countries who are poor countries. But spending such a big amount, the biggest receiver of US aid might be Ukraine, $300 billion something, then Jordan, then Egypt, and all these countries, Sudan, Somalia. It's billions of dollars, and some people say that trillions of dollars every year go through this black hole in the Pentagon or in the US government, and no one knows where all this money is going.
Yes, exactly.
While all this money could help America and its own people. So what do you think about all these policies?
So the first thing we can sense in all this is that the US government is like so corrupt that they are actually eating up all that money in the name of aid. Because, I'll give you an example. When the Afghanistan-US war was going on, a lot of money was coming in the name of aid. But the people in the government and when they reported this thing, that 70-80% of that money that is coming in the form of aid for the poor, for education, and this and that, 70-80% of that money has to go back to the lenders for their pays, because they're highly paid, and for all their needs and requirements, and only a trickle down thing comes in the hand of the Afghan government and then to the people. So you're right, most of that money is meant actually as bribes and to take favors, undue favors, and to make the government of those receiver countries to act in the interest of the US.
And also money laundering.
And yes, that may also be the case. So that is the thing, that the US economy has really suffered a lot because of all this corruption, and this corruption has weighed so heavily on the real people of the US. The people are getting poorer, the people are getting are being hit by inflation, and there's no health care for them and all that. So this is really right time for Trump and Elon Musk maybe to come and rescue their own economies and stop meddling into the affairs of other people's. How many billions they've already spent in the Ukraine war for no reason, when they knew from the onset that they're not going to win that war. That is the thing, that if they're really so loyal to their own people, if they really want to make America great again, then they should really stop all this corruption that's going on inside the US. So having said that, I would also like to point, we should also talk about the tariff game that Trump is playing, and there's tariff on Canada and on Mexico and now on China, and on the same time, just like you just mentioned, that maybe there is a deal going on between China and the US, maybe there is a deal going on between Putin and Trump. So let's also talk about that.
So yes, the trade tariffs was an interesting thing, because Trump announced on the weekend, maybe last Friday, that he was going to impose tariffs on Canada and Mexico. And on Monday, he came out and said that for now, the tariffs are on hold.
For a month.
For a month, and he's in negotiations with both the governments. And maybe he won't put any tariffs. Maybe it was the art of deal that Donald Trump is so famous about. But we got to understand that America, who has the biggest military in the world, cannot keep its own borders safe. And Canada is a pain in the neck for America. Actually, Canada contributes least in the NATO budget, and it's got a deficit and is getting all the protection from NATO and America, and they rely that if anyone wants to invade Canada, America will come and help them. So they're getting all the benefits, and plus they're giving all the worst things back to America. Then America will not only just save Canada from a war, America is also giving them some sort of economic benefits that amount to billions, hundreds of billions of dollars to support the Canadian economy. And Canada is in a lot of debt as well. I guess Toronto or Ontario is the most debted city in the whole world. There was some stat like that. Now, we know that drugs and people smuggle through the Mexican border, but the real issue is the Canadian border because Canada has no military or no real border defenses between the USA and the Canadian border. And all the drugs that come into Canada are mostly going south. They're not going upwards to the places that are north of Canada. Most of the things go south. And Canada is such a vast area that if there's like a fentanyl lab in some mountain in Canada, no one can really go and really check that out, because in like the whole of that area there might be only 2 Canadian policemen. And why would that policeman somehow travel like 2 hours, climb the whole mountain and bust a meth lab or a fentanyl lab? And China is making a lot of fentanyl, which is a new drug, and only a minor amount of dose could kill a person, because first it was the heroin from Afghanistan that was affecting the American youth. But when the Afghani opium the supply came down, and especially with Taliban right now, so they have moved towards a synthetic form of heroin, which is fentanyl. And fentanyl has completely devastated societies and many cities. And there's zombie people walking around in a lot of backward areas in America. And it's a very big crisis in America. And there is like this thing like 10 tons of fentanyl can almost kill the whole of America. That's so poisonous. So this fentanyl is coming through the Canadian borders. And the worst part is that Trudeau's whole administration, especially Trudeau, has pictures with some of these drug lords that are money laundering and that are smuggling drugs
and people
into America. And the Trudeau and administration were hand in hand. Some of these people were funding the Trudeau administration and funding the elections. And Trudeau might be a very handsome gentleman, and when he came, he won a heart of a lot of people. But really, he is a very sinister person. And Trump wants Canada to put border force there to stop the flow of fentanyl. And there are like thousands and hundreds of thousands of containers that go from Canada to America every year. And 0.05% or some very, very ridiculous number get actually scanned when they come to Canada. Most of them come to Canada, they're not scanned, and they're just they go to America. So there have been huge loads of drugs that have been busted on the ports of Canada. Recently, we see these figures and we're amazed, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Most of these things are going through and no one is finding out. And the real enemy, the real threat that America faces is Canada. Now, America with such a huge army can just why go to Gaza? Why not just go to Canada? It's such a big land, and they can even Donald Trump is saying that
They
Canada
should
can
make a
become,
border force on their borders with Canada.
yeah, and Canada could be the 51st state of America. So
That is ridiculous, by the way.
so, but he really can. That's easy for him, and for the size of army that he has. If American army tries to invade Canada, is Canada going to retaliate? No way. They're just going to let them in.
But that is literally going to destroy the world order, destroy the norms set in the UN, the sovereignties of states. I mean, that is, if that becomes the norm, then any country can just take their forces and occupy another country. That's not acceptable thing.
But
If they can do it in Canada, then why can't they do it in Gaza? That's the thing.
Of course, we're not recommending Donald Trump to do all these actions. But the point is that America is so far away from all the rest of the world that logistically for them to come and take over Afghanistan or Gaza is much more difficult, and it's much more impossible than just going into Canada. That's just their border. And even though if they don't invade Canada, they have this really big problem with Canada, that Canada needs to fix all these things. Most of the American people, the normal American people who go around, don't have like a ticket. They haven't traveled. Most of those teenagers haven't traveled on a plane. They don't have the money to buy an airplane ticket and go to another state of America. And most of them, the American dream is dead. Most of them are living paycheck to paycheck. They're just living for existence. If if there is a family in USA, both the parents are working and they don't have time for themselves, and they just work and work, and the economic cost of everything is so high. Trump was saying in this interview that came out a day ago, I guess, that for all these drugs, even the medical things are very expensive in America. There's this drug called Ozempic, which is a very trendy drug these days, and it's taken to reduce your fat. People take it and they become slimmer. And in London or UK, they sell it for 88 pounds, and in New York they sell it for $1,000. More than $1,000, and still it's not available in America. And it's made in the same factory, maybe in America, and they're making two different labels for UK and for America. The same company is selling that for $88 over there and $1,000 over here. Sometimes because America, because of its financial situation, is paying a lot more. The Americans, the way America is set up, is getting really expensive to go by and live a decent life if you're not wealthy. And we know that there's a lot of wealth in America, but there's also a lot of income disparity. The trade wars would have really, this sort of a situation would be like 5 or 10 years ahead from today, but Trump is really taking it heads on, and he's doing all these trade wars now because he knows that there is something that is really dangerous for the US economy. And what do you think about this, all these trade wars? And
last time when Trump got elected in his last tenure, he was labeled as an isolationist and a unilateralist, meaning that he just made his decisions and imposed them on other people and other countries, and there was no negotiation, there was no bilateralism, there was only a unilateral thing. And I think he's doing exactly the same thing again. But the difference is that in his last tenure, all his wars were against the enemies of US, the labeled enemies of the US, like maybe North Korea, maybe Iran, maybe China. But this time when he came, the first target of his trade war was his friends. And that is the thing that shocked a lot, that he made these tariffs on Mexico and Canada, and he has warned the European economies that he is going to come with his tariffs on them too. And that is something that is really like disturbing the geopolitical landscape, because if Trump is going to take his tariff revenge on his friends, on his allies, then what's going to happen is that USA is not going to be a superpower anymore, because a superpower is supposedly a country who has the most friends, the most allies in the world. If you have started fighting with each and every ally of your country, then you are again isolating yourself. And that is the label, he got last time, that he is an isolationist. And this making America great again is going to be like making America totally isolated from the outer world, and making America like totally irrelevant in the global chessboard, in the global affairs. And if we hope that the Ukraine war is going to end, and Trump is going to have a deal with Putin, and then there's going to be a deal with China, and there all these tensions, if they decrease, and then the US is putting these tariffs on their friends in Canada and in Europe, what's going to happen is America is just going to become not great country, isolated, and taking care of its own self.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And also China, US has also a big deficit with China. They have a $1 trillion deficit that
Trillions.
they owe to China, and the last year they had over $300 billion of deficit, and the year before the deficit was even more. So they are in a lose-lose situation, and China makes a lot of money from the USA, and the deal is that China buys some bonds, US bonds, in return of the goods that they supply. And China takes out billions and billions of dollars. In a way, the American economy is funding the Chinese army, because because of the interest on those bonds and on those loans that China has given America. The interest is so much that they get billions and billions of dollars, and a lot of that money goes into making the Chinese army so strong. So it's a lose-lose situation for America. But the point is that does China really need the American consumers? China is really selling to the whole world. They have a really big middle class. Now when America is imposing tariffs on China, China gave retaliatory tariffs to America as well, especially on the energy thing. Recently, I was seeing this video that most of the tungsten is produced in China. So it's not that you have a power or you have money. How these rare earth minerals are placed all over the world is not fair to each country, because most of these reserves are at one place, and like tungsten is in high quantity in China. So most of these rare earth minerals are unevenly distributed. That's why some countries get a lot of them and other countries don't have anything. So tungsten would be a nice example, and tungsten is used in a lot of new technologies and in I think even the modern chips. And most of the tungsten is in China. So if China just says that I don't want to give this element or this rare mineral or metal, so America can't even run its economy. So it's a double game that China and America are playing, and China could really choke America's whole infrastructure if they stop giving a few goods that is really important for the American economy. But On the other hand, the real weapon that America has and has had for like the past 80 years is the American dollar. And the American dollar is a system that ensures that America keeps its supremacy over the world, and there's no real alternative. The only alternative you could say is gold, because gold has been around for 7,000 years and it's been a form of currency in many civilizations, in all civilizations, I guess. And dollar just came like this sort of petrodollar came after
71.
the 70s. And its days might be numbered. So the alternative asset could be gold. And recently we see that in London, the stockpile of gold is diminishing. Who sets the price of gold is the LBMA, London Exchange. And there's two type of gold. There's this paper gold and there's physical gold. So usually how people trade in gold is the futures, and in futures they open contracts.
The stock market, you're saying?
Yeah, the stock market. So people usually don't take delivery of their gold. Most of the trade that is happening in the world is on gold is happening through these future contracts. And then they some guy opens a future contract and says he's bullish on gold and he's going to go long, and another guy could open a contract and say that he's bearish. But there's no exchange of gold in all of this process. And there's only contracts between people which set the price. And for most part of the past century, these big exchanges like the LBMA have been setting the price of gold. But there's now, for past few months, or past few years, we don't know, there's been a discrepancy between the price that they set and and then the price people pay for getting the real gold. We heard that people were paying like $60-70 premium to get gold in Shanghai or Hong Kong from a long while. And now recently we see tons and tons of gold traveling from the London exchange towards New York. And gold is getting depleted on those exchanges because people are now not trusting the paper gold. They want to take custody of the real gold. And the derivative system is set up that for every ounce of real physical gold, there's like 60,000 ounces of gold in those contracts. So there's no way.
That's a huge bubble, you know.
Yeah, there's no way that if all those people who are holding those future contracts or are holding paper gold, if they all tell the government at once or the exchange at once that all of them want their gold, everything would go bankrupt. And that is what is really happening. It can't happen in a day or two, but with the Chinese and the Russians and all these other nations are taking back their gold. And even we heard that India took back so many tons of gold, 10 tons, 30 tons of gold. I don't know the exact number, but it was a very big number back from the London exchange. So countries are slowly, we don't see the dollar system falling just in like a month or two, but slowly, people are taking back control through this other asset that is gold. So what do you think about all the system and what is going to happen in the future?
Well, we know that this big economic thing created inside the USA, this big stock markets and all those things, and I mean, this all based on these treasury bonds and all that. These are financial instruments, actually, like you said, because of their control on the dollar and their control on the printing of the dollar. They could make these financial instruments that would allow them to create more money just out of money. And that is what they have been doing for so many years, and they think that they can just print more money, more dollars, and then give those same dollars as loans or as bonds to other countries, and then take their interest and take their, this whole game is based on money, paper money, which is a fake thing. Actually this bubble has to burst at some point of time. And right now the USA has a national debt of 35 or 36 trillion dollars, which is like, they can never ever pay back. So what is going to be the end? The only way the US can sustain is that the whole world keeps trusting the dollar system. They keep letting the US print more trillions and trillions of dollars, and they just take their bonds, take their loans from them, and let this system go on just like that. But people, maybe so many countries were still happy in this system, even though they knew that this was a fake system. But what happens is that US also wants to be a superpower and a hegemon, and it wants its interest in all the countries. It wants China to behave the way it wants North Korea to behave, it wants Russia to behave. But all these countries are they're evolving. Every country is having their own lifespan and the evolution and development, and every country is seeing these new vast possibilities, especially with China, with the Belt and Road Initiative that is spread all over the world. People and countries are looking at new possibilities, and they want to take those new chances and possibilities. And that is the key strength of China, that via this Belt and Road Initiative, China is able to diversify its economy. The more people get into the Belt and Road Initiative, China is able to start projects and sell its things to all these different countries, and it doesn't need the US anymore, because right now the US was its biggest trade partner. Now if it diversifies around the globe, what happens is it doesn't need the US as its prime customer, and then it has this position that it can ask the US to open its treasury bonds, give it back its billions of dollars. The day that happens, US is bound to collapse. That's what's going to happen. And this is a trade war. This two things that they use. One is the sanctions, and the other is the tariff. Sanctions are because they control this exchange system, the SWIFT. It's called SWIFT. All the money that goes all around the world goes through this banking system, this very computer thing, which is controlled by the US. And because they control it, they can pinpoint person to person people from Russia. A few days back they sanctioned 150 oil tankers that had been supplying Russian oil to India and Russian oil to China. They can it's they can pinpoint individuals, they can pinpoint organizations and institutions, and they can sanction them. That is their biggest weapon. But people all around the world, Russia, if it's selling its oil to India or to China, Russia thinks that what does the US have to do between this thing? This is a bilateral trade. Why can the US jump inside and just stop us from doing that? So people are getting irritated, and people are looking for other ways. And the other thing is tariffs. Tariffs is, how they work. If the US puts a 25% tariff on goods from Canada, what is happening is that the Canadians are going to sell their thing in $100 still, and the 25% extra is going to be paid by the US consumers. And that 25% collected from the US consumer is going to be put inside the US banks, and the government is going to become richer, the people are going to suffer more and more. So this tariff thing can't go on for long, because the people will not be happy with this. So these both, weapons that the US has, they are not a long-term weapons. They can't be used forever. So that's what's going to happen.
That might be really true, that days of the American economy and how the things have been run might be numbered, and maybe it's like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but it's a good time for Trump to really step on the game and try to save the economy, try to reverse a few decisions that they have taken in the past that weren't the right decisions. And we hope the best for America, but this might also fuel worldwide economic collapse.
Exactly.
If this really goes on for some while. It could be devastating for the stock markets. And maybe in a certain way, you could also say that Trump would want to crash the economy, because whenever they crash the economy, then they go to the Federal Reserve Bank and they turn on the money printer and they print billions and billions and trillions of dollars and put that in their economy. This is the reason that because the economy has crashed, now we have to inject all these trillions of dollars into the economy, and then all that money goes all towards the rich people. Maybe there would be Trump advisors, or the people who funded his political campaign, all his billionaire friends. They get all this money, and then they do investments all over the world, so the rich keeps getting richer and richer, and the poor suffers even more. So that is a very interesting situation and interesting times that we are living in. We don't know what the future holds, but certainly there is something happening that would disrupt a lot of things in the coming few days, and we'll be there for our audience and our viewers to be telling them whatever these changes might bring up. So to end the podcast, do you have some comments?
Yes, I would like to end in this thing, that this is a time of extreme uncertainty, and this is an era or a time that we're going through is like the more we have information, this is era of information explosion, we say, but the more it is of a confusion era, because what is really happening under the table between the governments, between the officials, and what we see on our news media's channels, that is totally different. And it's really, really hard for any sane person like you and me to understand what is actually happening in the world. And we just can pray and hope that things can become better for the people of Palestine, for the people of Ukraine, for the people in Iran who have been suffering from sanctions for so long, and so many other countries where things are not going good. We hope the best for every country and for the whole humanity.
Especially for Pakistan.
Yeah,
Our
exactly.
country has been suffering a lot lately.
Yeah.
So we pray that Pakistan gets out of all these situations that we're in. And we had a wonderful time. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Hope you guys had a wonderful time as well. Bye-bye and stay safe.